It's Bourbon Night. Hello, I'm Chad.
I'm Sarah.
And this is Dixon. And Dixon, what is this?
That is confiscated.
Confiscated. Okay. Sarah and I have not had this yet.
Nope.
This is our bottle that we brought. We're going to uncork it, but you know, imagine this. Dixon already had a bottle open. So, a little different format for uncorking.
Yeah.
But
we're not going to fight him. We're going to let him pour us his if he wants to.
So just to give the lowdown, it's 96.4 proof, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. But what else can you tell us about it?
Confiscated is a blend of 5, 9, 10, and 12-year-old distillates that took me a long time to put together, both kind of based on what the plan was with this, but also kind of working a little bit outside of my normal comfort zone, so to speak. So then what I started doing was working with different lots of barrels, 4 different distillates, 4 different ages, 4 different mash bills, but there are actually a total of 9 different lots represented. So some of the same distillate with the same age, but 3 and 4 months apart on date of distillation. So
Okay.
I got a passing grade on 5th grade math, but that's about as...
Yeah, I was promised no math in this uncorking.
I know, I'm
and then
like,
you're talking about lots, and you're talking about mash bills.
Then there's a lot of chicken scratch on paper that turned into this one, and it's the first whiskey I've ever been a part of, in the sub 100 proof point.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a real challenge because I don't like to, want to, or really have any interest in creating a whiskey, a bourbon that has no character, no substance, nothing to it. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like people do it, but there's nothing wrong with the term smooth, mild, easy to drink, but a lot of times those ideas are often, around bourbon that has been taken into the 90 proof point range, and there's no real finish, and there's no, and so the real struggle was to try to target a lower proof point because we're trying to make a different iteration that worked differently than some of the other stuff we do, but that also still had structure, and still had balance, and still had real character, and still,
Well, the nose has some complexity.
Yeah, let's
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that, because we always like to talk about the nose first before we take the first sip. Gotta say I'm a little nervous giving nosy notes in front of the...
No, you should just, as soon as he says something wrong.
No, there's none of
No,
that. I didn't put
that in there.
I didn't put any of that in my whiskey.
I'm the worst to, notes is a hard thing to do. Notes is a challenging thing to do. And when I do whiskey, it's more about, do I like what's going on here? I'm not a big fan of feeling like I've got to put my finger on exactly what it is.
I'm so glad that you said that because I'm having such a hard time putting my finger on exactly what this is.
And I don't know, I'm kind of getting like maybe a mixture of clove and cinnamon kind of on the nose.
I honestly don't even know. It's so complex that
Maybe
I'm like having a hard time picking anything out in particular.
Apple peel?
I don't know.
Let's go start throwing things out there. Something sticks.
I don't think that's how this works.
No?
Like palates work in different ways, and I don't think there's anything wrong with I've worked on private barrel selections with people who can select beautiful, fabulous barrels that they just mark an X or a check mark, you know what I mean, and have no interest and couldn't care any less.
Yeah.
I have another friend who has this amazing palate and this amazing ability to taste things, but we're very similar in it almost like whatever you taste or smell, it's like a sensory that takes you, like, triggers a memory. Like,
That's
you
how I
taste
am.
things and it's like, oh, this reminds me of the way the mountain cabin that we stayed in that time.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
it's like all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh,
Absolutely.
that takes me to that place, or it takes me to that.
Yeah.
And then there are the people that are really remarkable about saying, I get a note of blood orange, and there's a touch of cayenne, and there's a little of anise, and and so I'm always fascinated to like just talk to people about what they're getting.
With us, I think we get lucky sometimes, and we get on a streak where I'll say something, or Sarah will say something, and the other one will be like, "Oh my God, yes, that."
Yeah. But then there's always.
But there's other times where we're like, "What? I like it, but what is it?"
What is that? Yeah.
A lot of times we say after you have a drink, and you can go back and nose it, and you can pick up some things from the taste. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Confiscated. Cheers. Wow. And
if blind tasting, I wouldn't say that was under 100.
No, it's got the spice. It has,
but in a really good way.
And all over, as might not be used to our little descriptors, tongue tingle, as we say, a little tongue punch there. Yeah, all over, not located in one part of the tongue, which I'm really liking. And we'll say this, because we've never done an uncorking with anyone involved in the brand, but you have our honest statement here that if we think it sucks, we'll tell them. We'll tell them. Be like, hey, but
we will.
That's not happening. Luckily,
I would be highly disappointed
if we didn't.
If you thought it sucked and you didn't say so. There are whiskeys that I don't like and that people love.
Sure.
And there are fabulous whiskeys that just don't suit me. And there are some whiskeys that people make fun of and rip and tear down all the time that I think are beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's really important to understand that people have different palates. And people have different things they enjoy. And people have different appreciations of different whiskeys. And
that's the beauty of it.
I have zero problem with somebody saying, I don't like this.
Yeah.
Understand, no big deal.
I'll tell you right now, this does not suck.
Luckily, this does not suck. So we don't...
It has some really amazing spice going on, but it's like, it's also really balanced. So that's where I get that, like, the spice is making me feel like I'm getting a nice little hug. So
Kentucky hug,
putting me around, like, I feel like I'm drinking something that's around 100 proof.
110.
But I don't feel like I've lost the flavor at all. Like,
I would tell you, like, I've never been very good at blending from I'm getting this note, or I'm picking up this note, and I want to exaggerate it or accentuate it or whatever. And part of the way I've done things, which is my own way, which is a very unique way, which doesn't make sense to a whole lot of people, and for good or bad, it's just my way, is really focusing on specifically where you feel it when you taste it. And my palate is such that when it gets to certain portions of the palate, those little alarm bells go off and they say, run away, run away, run away, do something else, And I like complexity on the palate, but I like it from the tip of your tongue in the front to the finish in the back. But I like it down the middle of the palate. And I don't like it too far on the extremities where things start to get green and start to get bitter and start to get tannic and whatever. Yeah. So the introduction, really, it was the introduction of the second lot of this younger stuff, which is, in my opinion, pound for pound, the best stuff that's in this blend, was what kind of drove it back, got a little bit on the front. But the other thing that struck me about this blend was there's this great, so here I'm totally like going back on what I said, but these are the things that it reminded me of. There's a citrus note in the middle of this, like an orange, like orange. It goes from kind of orange to like a cayenne spice. Like that's the way I followed it. And then you worked in some of those neat kind of licorice notes or something like that. But that was what I was getting. But there was complexity there. Even at 90, whatever it is, 96.4, I forget all the time. But like
it's 96.4. You are correct, sir.
It drinks like a full flavored.
It really does.
It doesn't drink like a barrel proof bourbon. It's not a barrel proof bourbon, but it doesn't drink like a 90 proof kind of washed out light.
I think it's super interesting how it's achieving that. Like, it's not barrel proof, but it's not 90 proof, and it comes off a little higher than it is, but I think not in the way that it feels like it burns like a higher proof bourbon, but in the way that it feels like you're getting all that flavor as it was intended and less cut down. And I think it's like really hitting just like right on the nose.
I feel like if I was blinded with this, I would put it around the Russell's
It's really
Reserve.
not to say that would blind you.
That's not how they make it anymore.
If this was moonshine, I became blind. I put it around like Russell's Reserve at 110. Or Pikesville Rye 110, which I enjoy being in that range.
Yeah,
so I think it's really impressive that it's that proof, but it's giving off those characteristics.
I'll take it. I mean, because that's my sweet spot. That's
Right.
where that's where I like to drink. That's
where I can safely drink for the entire evening. So I'm curious about where the name Confiscated comes from.
working on what kind of a new iteration under this brand would be. I thought, and I, was more of a approachable proof, a lower proof, so that we kind of have something that operates in the barrel proof, space.
Something for everybody.
And something that was a little, and I appreciate you saying that, but I realize that at the price point that this is at, this is still in my mind, in that special occasion thing. I certainly not lost on me that $120 is not what somebody goes and drops for a bottle that they're gonna crack open on and polish off by the end of the week. Like,
right.
Totally not lost on me.
Yeah.
And my real responsibility is the liquid that's in the bottle, right? I mean that's all. I don't buy the corks. I don't buy the glass. I'm not responsible for having the labels printed. I'm not,
Phew, that sounds like a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
My job is to put stuff together to go in the bottle, and the team, like, we were really kind of struggling to figure out what to call this. So total, like, standing in the shower one morning moment, like, getting ready for my day and thinking through this stuff, and and how it's like when
Best ideas, right? In the shower, totally.
Totally. And I guess I was kind of thinking about the way that that we had, the story and what we were doing, and basically that batch 1, batch 2, batch 8, batch 9, whatever, was really the rebirth, the kind of taking an old brand, and it was the way we were doing it was the future of the brand, and thinking about the story and my family story and the story of my family's distillery. There was another kind of story to tell, which was the end of the brand, and the barrels that when they were forced to cease production were seized or confiscated by the federal government and taken, and that led to the great story about how they burned the rick houses and all that stuff. But
you didn't use air quotes. Burned.
Mysteriously burned. But I mean, that was really the idea. Was like confiscated is kind of this like tribute, not necessarily not in flavor profile or whatever, but kind of like it's another part of the story. Is the and
I love
and
that.
so that the confiscated name, like it just kind of I was like stolen, but now it's
There's already a stolen whiskey out there.
yeah, and then all of a sudden I was
But
like
yeah, it's
Confiscated.
That's kind of cool.
If our viewers aren't familiar, Dixon is let me rephrase that. Your great-great-grandfather
That's correct.
was Charles Dedman, if I'm remembering right.
You're right on time.
Boom.
Chad's passing the quiz.
Channeling that article was the one who created the Owl brand, and that was the most popular brand of others, correct?
From what I understand, he also did a lot of contract distilling. I've seen one empty bottle or a couple empty bottles of Kentucky Owl, but I've actually tasted and seen more bottles of brands that on the back label listed, distilled at the CM Dedman distillery.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty cool.
yes.
Yeah, it's a super interesting story, and your family's history and how things were confiscated, and then because we saw you talk a couple years, probably about 3 years ago now, when you're telling this story. And again, I'm channeling that now about how your great-great-grandfather was petitioning the government to get an insurance policy on these barrels, and they were like, "It's in the government's hands. Don't even worry about it." And then they say, "Oopsie, it burnt down." And then, of course, that was Prohibition, and the end of Prohibition just weren't able to bounce back. But in 2014, as you said, you resurrected your family's legacy with this brand, and we're thankful that you have.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a super interesting story. But as far as this lovely bottle right here, and it is a beautiful bottle.
Speaking of being thankful, I'm so thankful for the gorgeous art on this label. It's like my favorite art.
So we always come down to, at the end of our uncorkings, to recommend or not. Price-wise, as Dixon said, it's around $120. So it does fall in that more of a special occasion. I do have to say, at the time of this filming, yesterday was my birthday. It's this man's birthday in a few days. So we're surrounded by special occasions. This is something that would happily break out for it. $120, also, as you said, isn't something that you're just going to always plop down and go through the bottle. So the recommend or not comes with that caveat. And I know it's not in everyone's budget, so that is something to take into consideration. But the juice inside, to the flavor profile and the finish that this has and the complexity of it, and I know people can be like, well, he's sitting right next to the guy, of course he's going to recommend it. Like I said,
we'll figure out a way to work this into a blind taste test later so that you guys actually believe us. But
absolutely. But I'd say recommend.
I agree. I've paid more for bottles that I've been sorely disappointed in.
Same.
So knowing that this is at $120 when there's a lot more expensive out there as well, I'd be happy to buy this again.
Okay.
I think it's delicious,
Do you
and
want
I'm
the
excited.
official?
Oh,
Boom. That's what we do. It's our thing. It's our thing.
I'm excited to finish this.
Absolutely.
And then finish this.
And then, hey, no. We're going to keep this around, special occasions. Well, thanks, Dixon. We appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure.
And this, was, like I said, a completely different experience. Talking about and critiquing a bottle with the person who had everything to do with it. But
I'm only sweating a little.
Yeah, I was just like, phew, we made it.
It's hot in here.
We made it.
All these lights.
Yeah, the lights are hot. But no, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Very
Thank
cool.
you.
I'm actually getting ready to go do a tasting
And dinner.
also for my birthday
At the Beaumont
We're
Inn.
here at the Beaumont Inn, which you've heard us talk about before, especially in our live episodes, how it's a destination that you definitely want to hit. But we'll say it again, Beaumont Inn. You need to be there.
Can Beaumont Inn get a recommend?
Recommend.
Double recommend.
We
How
keep
about
coming
that?
back.
Yeah, keep coming back.
Food's
It's our second
delicious.
year here for birthday.
I love it.
Birthday celebration.
So.
Well, that'll do it for us, guys. If you're new here to the channel and you like we're bringing here to the table, you can hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. You give us a thumbs up if you feel like we earned it. You can hit that bell notification if you want to get notified when we put out our episodes, is how you talk.
That's how I say it.
Also, we want to let you know about our home on the internet for our merch, glasses, apparel, and so forth. It's whiskyambitions.com. You can check that out for everything. If you're whiskey ambitious, whiskyambitions.com.
If you want to become a patron, it's patreon.com/itsbourbonnight, and you can join in our bourbon-loving community. You can also find all our favorite things for our bourbon night. It's our Amazon influencer page, amazon.com/shop/itsbourbonnight. And where's the last place they can find us, Chad?
Lastly, you can follow us on all the social medias at It's Bourbon Night. And if they would like to follow you and your brand,
Well, there's an at Kentucky Owl, and I am at the Old Owl. If you have any interest in seeing the silly things that I do.
You do.
that's
You
on
do.
that's on the Instagrams, right?
That's right.
Yep. Cool.
All right.
Very good. Well, thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, Dixon.
Thank you all.
All right. Until next time, drink more bourbon. This is a thinker. And I love that about it. That I can't just completely drill down and be like, that's what that is.